Hello everyone. I have just completed studying this patient who is a 57-year-old man. He was referred to our echo department with a history of shortness of breath for a period of 1.5 months. He doesn't give any history of hypertension or diabetes, but he's a known smoker. So with this background and with this complaint, I start doing this echo of this patient. The first uh, I started doing this echo, and the first view that we took was the parasternal long axis view. Here I'm going to show you the parasternal long axis, the parasternal short axis at the level of the mitral valve, at the level of the papillary muscle, at the apical level. And after looking at this parasternal and short axis and long axis view, we can understand that this patient has reduced systolic function. His cavity is dilated, and now we are going to do an assessment for the dimension of the LV cavity and also the function of the LV cavity. So first we will try to see this patient in M mode. However, we will not do a Tycho's method of measurement. We will only measure the LV end diastolic and the end systolic dimension in the M mode. And here you can see that the end diastolic dimension is 63 and the end systolic dimension is 58, which means that this patient has LV dilatation and LV and global hypokinesia of the LV. So after this, we will have to assess the ejection fraction of this patient. And for assessing the ejection fraction, we will do the biplane modified Simpson method, which is recommended for assessing patients' ejection fraction. So here you can see that I have taken a apical 4-chamber view and also a apical 2-chamber view. And here the ejection fraction by this method has come to be at 26%. The EDV and the ESV of this patient is measured at 121 millimeter and 90 millimeter, and if we divide it with the BSA, it will give us the actual indexed volume of this patient. But we have a clear idea that this patient has dilatation of LV cavity with reduced systolic function. And here, when we were assessing this patient, we can easily see that there is no regional wall motion abnormality. There is a global systolic dysfunction. We have examined this patient in parasternal long axis, parasternal short axis, apical 4-chamber, apical long axis, and apical 2-chamber views. And in all these views, we could ascertain that this patient has no regional wall motion abnormality. After doing the LV ejection fraction calculation by biplane Simpson method, we will now examine this patient's global longitudinal strain. Here again, we will strain is calculated in all these three views: the apical long axis, the apical 4-chamber, and the apical 2-chamber views. And here one has to keep in mind that the proper delineation of the myocardium is very important. Otherwise, this image, the spectral tracking that gives us the global longitudinal strain might become erroneous. But however, in this patient, we could see that the bullseye has given us this kind of a picture which shows that LV has a very reduced strain with a global strain of -5%, and apical long axis shows -4.2%, 4-chamber shows 6%, and the 2-chamber shows only a strain of -4.9%. So to summarize the LV systolic function, we can say that this patient has dilated cavity with increased end diastolic, end systolic volumes, and global systolic dysfunction with reduced systolic function and global reduced longitudinal strain. So after assessing the LV systolic function, we will now go on to assess the diastolic function of LV. Here, the diastolic function of LV is assessed from the 4-chamber view. In the mitral inflow, we will keep the PW Doppler, and you can see that this flow pattern, the mitral inflow pattern, which shows increased E velocity, decreased A velocity, increase in E by A ratio with a sharp deceleration time of 100 milliseconds, which shows us that this is a grade 3 diastolic filling pattern. We then go on to do the tissue Doppler imaging, where the cursor is placed at the mitral valve medial annulus, and here the septal velocity has come to 0.03 meter per second, and also at the lateral annulus, which is 0.04, and the average is something around 22, which shows that this patient has grade 3 diastolic dysfunction with reduced tissue Doppler velocities in both mitral annulus. Then to further show to further assess the diastolic function, we did the pulmonary venous Doppler. Here you can see that there is a reversal of the systolic and the diastolic flow pattern. Normally the systole is more than the diastole, but here the systole is much decreased, systolic velocity is much decreased than the diastolic velocity. And at the end we did also the IVRT, which we did by using the tissue Doppler and keeping the tissue Doppler in the mitral lateral annulus, which IVRT is in this patient is 62.8 millisecond, which is also reduced. So to summarize, this patient has both systolic and diastolic dysfunction with dilated cavity. So after assessing the LV systolic and diastolic function, we'll now assess the RV. So here you can see this is a typical RV view I have taken, where the RV free wall is properly visualized. You can see the opening of and closing of the tricuspid valve. And to assess the RV, we will have to do the take different measurements to see the RV systolic function. The first, the TAPSE, the RV strain, and also RV FSE, and also we will do the RVS1 to see the RV function. So to assess, first to assess we will do this RV strain imaging, whereby we will get all the required data that we need. Here you can see the RV strain, global strain has come to minus 10.5%, with the free wall strain of minus 15.1% and TAPSE of 15, which shows that although the basal portion of the RV shows good strain, the mid and the apical portion and the free wall shows reduced strain, which means that this patient has reduced RV function as well. And here we have also checked this TAPSE by putting the separately, and we can also demonstrate the TAPSE by putting the cursor on the tricuspid lateral annulus and then measure the TAPSE. And here we have also done the RVS1, which has come to 0.08 meter per second, the normal value being more than 0.09 meter per second. So to summarize, that this patient also, along with LV systolic dysfunction, diastolic dysfunction, the patient also has RV systolic dysfunction with reduced RV function in the form of reduced TAPSE, reduced global strain, and reduced RVS1 velocity. We also did the RV FSE, which came to be about, we did the RV FSE, I'm just going to show you that. For doing the RV FSE, we have to take the RV endocardial border. We will have to line the RV endocardial border in end diastole and also in end systole, and then our machine has this auto EF package, which gives us a RV FSE of 21.6%. The normal RV ejection FSE value is more than 35%, and this patient has 21%, which again shows that he has reduced RV function. So initially we have measured the left atrium from the parasternal long axis view, which was about 4.2 to 4.3 centimeters, and now we are going to measure the left atrial strain. And left atrial strain is measured in our machine, and it's auto-generated. So here we can see the biplane has given us this strain. The contractile strain is minus 1%. The LA reservoir strain is 4%, which clearly shows that this patient has reduced left atrial strain. Now I'm going to show you some valvular regurgitation. This patient has mild MR, and also he has mild TR. We calculated the tricuspid valve TR velocity. The TR was about 40, and so the IVC of this patient was collapsing normally, and it was 1.8 centimeters. So the PA pressure was around 46. So to summarize, this patient that I just concluded studying has dilated cardiomyopathy with increased LV and diastolic and systolic volume, with reduced LV systolic function, grade 3 diastolic dysfunction. He also has RV dysfunction with mild pulmonary arterial hypertension, and also his left atrial strain is grossly reduced. So at this moment we can say that the patient's systemic venous congestion is reduced, but he definitely has features of pulmonary venous congestion. So I'm going to quickly show you another case of uh, dilated cardiomyopathy of different etiology. So this is a patient who just underwent a PTCA to LED, and you can clearly see from this parasternal long axis view that the septum is thin and kinetic. Here is the apical fourth chamber view, and here is the parasternal short axis view. I'm going to quickly show you the views of this patient. So you can clearly see that the apical segment is almost akinetic, and the RV looks normal. The LA is borderline enlarged, and we did the same way. We assessed the function and the global strain of this patient. Again, from the apical fourth chamber, apical two chamber, and apical long axis views. And here is the global strain. This is how it looks for this patient. This patient also had a reduced strain of minus 8.7%. And then I did assess the LV function from the apical fourth chamber view and also from the apical two chamber view, where you can see by this biplane method where the ejection fraction has come something to be around 34%. So this patient also has systolic dysfunction but has regional wall motion abnormality. Both are dilated cardiomyopathies, but one is of ischemic etiology and other is idiopathic. And here this patient, you can definitely, if you compare those images, this patient has thin and akinetic anteroseptal apex, wall and apex. And now looking at the diastolic function of this patient, my last patient of DCM had grade 3 diastolic dysfunction, whereas this patient has a grade 1 diastolic dysfunction. Here we can see that the E velocity is less than the A velocity. E by A ratio is 0.53 with a normal deceleration time of 200. The E by E prime ratio of this patient and septal and the medial annulus was and lateral annulus was almost within normal limits, and it was 8.2, and the IVRT was 112. So to say that this patient, although this is also a patient of dilated cardiomyopathy, he has a grade 1 diastolic dysfunction, whereas the last patient had a grade 3 diastolic dysfunction. Both has systolic dysfunction. One has regional wall motion abnormality and the other doesn't. To summarize, I have showed you two patients, one of dilated cardiomyopathy of idiopathic origin, another of ischemic origin, one with regional wall motion and one without regional wall motion abnormality.